Like many players, I fall into the classic 2-week Minecraft survival phase. Short bursts of excitement followed by long breaks on creative mode or total burnout, not playing the game again for months. But one comment changed that. A comment from a fellow YouTuber called Time Architect. This is my journey on how I lifted the curse of the 2-week Minecraft phase with the help of an amazing SMP called the Forever SMP, and how I transformed this island into my forever starter base. It's early 2024, I've just uploaded my biggest creative build at the time, and I get a notification someone called Time Architect has commented on my video, asking if I'm interested in joining SMP. Fast forward a couple of days, and I'm on the server looking for somewhere to settle and build my starter base. With the help of a couple of members of the server, I get to the spot I scouted out on the world map, this beautifully positioned island surrounded by endless forests. And then, I don't play on the server again for a month, as I end up designing my first iteration of the starter base, which I'll be honest, was underwhelming and terrible. Doubting my abilities to design something worthy of the server, I fell back into the dreaded trap of the 2-week phase, unable to think of a base which I would be able to call my last ever starter base. Thankfully, everyone on this server is incredibly supportive, and with the help of Josh Powers, Death Dealer and Time, to name a few, I eventually managed to settle on a design for my starter base which I was happy with. Almost instantly after finishing the design process, I was hit with an unbelievable amount of burnout, but I tried to press forward. With the help of Joshy, I managed to clear out all of the woodland on the island. A few months later, I'd finished the terraforming and had gathered the resources. I then did nothing. Doubt and burnout was clouding my mind, leading me to almost falling into the 2-week Minecraft phase trap. However, with a little bit of encouragement from Def and Joshy, I finally made a start on actually building my starter base, beginning with the bridge to connect the island to the surrounding area, then moving on to laying the foundations of the base. And then I took a break for what started as a couple of days to work on some creative videos, but quickly snowballed to a couple of months before I would return to make a proper start on the base. After finishing the 100 days of YouTube Shorts, I came back to the build and hit the ground running. Steamrolling through the rest of the foundations, I then started on the guest house. And with that, it was time to start on the interior walls and the roofs. And with that, the guest house was done. Originally I planned on ending the video here and taking a break from the build. However, the server world tour was only a few days away, and I was challenged by 5 other server members to try and get the main building done before then. If I managed to do so, they would each give me an override block. So I continued and finished the stables and the connecting rooms before coming off for the day. With the world tour the next day, I wasted no time and started on the servants' quarters and the palace chapel, with my aim for the day to at least complete this wing of the palace. With the chapel and a large portion of the main palace completed, I came off for the night, knowing I only had a matter of hours left to build. And with more than half of the build left, it was going to be a challenge. I started this day by finishing up where I'd gotten to the night before, spending the next couple of hours completing the front of the palace before being joined by my brother and fellow server member. With the two of us building together, we began to tear through the build. However, the deadline was creeping closer and closer. As I was pinged on Discord, the players on the world tour poured out of the portal. I'd failed. I'd stopped building, ended my replay recording, gave a quick tour of the base. Despite failing, I wasn't dissuaded, and would continue building off camera for the next couple of days, finishing up the main building. And with that, the roof is finally finished. It's now time to move on to the spires. With the palace finished, it was time for the surrounding gardens. But since no one wants to watch me build hedges, I did that off camera, leaving me with the trees and some final details. Start with the trees, I wanted to experiment on how to build them. Building the trunk, then the leaves. At first I built the leaves from top to bottom, which took far too long, so I settled on building them from bottom to top, which now that I think about it, should have been obvious from the beginning. build is done. My journey over the last year has finally paid off. I think I understand now why building creative and survival is different. It isn't that the game changes. It's the journey. Every block, every hour, every time you crash into a wall with an elytra, it all builds up to this feeling of accomplishment. I feel like now I can truly say that I love this game. And the curse of the true elite Minecraft phase is finally broken. And I guess I'm just going to have to prove that and continue building. Though for my next project on the server, I might bring the scale down just a little. If you've enjoyed this video and want to see my future builds, please consider liking and subscribing. I've set a goal to reach 1,000 subscribers before both mine and the channel's birthdays in September. Now that's enough begging for subscribers. I'll see you all in the next one, and with that, it's goodbye for now.